Hi, I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
Morning again, everyone. And a shout out to the Sunday afternoon spiritual circle in Corpus Christi, Texas. It watches us every Sunday. So I just want to do a shout out to you guys. Thanks for the note. Thanks for the wonderful gifts. And please know that our prayers and our thoughts are with you and everybody in Texas affected by Hurricane Harvey. Lots of love and blessings to you all. So this guy walks into a bookstore. And he says to the clerk, "Can you tell me where the self-help section is?" And the clerk says, "I could, but that would defeat the purpose of it." Come on, I've been on vacation. Just warming back up. So how many people here have ever had an experience that was so painful and devastating that you wish it never happened? Kind of like that joke I just told. How many people here have ever made a mistake or regretted saying something or doing something that caused someone you love harm, that if you could have it again, you would do it differently? And how many people have something in your life right now that is so overwhelming and a challenge to you that you wish you had a magic wand and you could make it just disappear? Anybody? You know, I have come to realize that every person alive has an impulse in them towards something greater. An impulse towards happiness, an impulse to greater love and connection, an impulse to greater levels of success, an impulse to greater levels of fulfillment or making a difference or having a positive impact. Every one of us has an impulse to create, to express, and to bring forth something greater, to improve our lives, to have a better life, to have a happy life, to have a more fulfilling life. Every one of us has that in us to continually unfold and expand towards something greater, happier, and more fulfilling. And I believe that we can have that, but one of the keys that we often overlook that need to be done to help us get to that place is to ask ourselves a question is, how do I show up when life isn't going the way that I want it to go? How do I show up in those moments of disappointment and heartache? Those moments of unexpected loss, those moments of frustration, a sick child, sudden death, maybe a diagnosis you didn't want to get or a family member to get. Maybe it's losing a lot of money in a bad investment or a business deal gone wrong. Maybe it's betrayal or divorce or bankruptcy. Maybe it's losing a job after many years and having to start over again. Maybe it's struggling with addiction. Or maybe it's just being overwhelmed with all the challenges that you face. Every one of us wants to have a great life. And ideally, we'd like it to come to us as easily as possible. One of the things I've realized is when life is easy, it's easy to be happy and to rejoice. It's easy to feel good. The question is, how do you show up when life doesn't go the way you want? When it doesn't go the way you think it should? I think every one of us has a version of life in our heads of how life should be, of how things should go and how people should behave. And my question for all of us who have that expectation that life should go our way, how's that working for you? How many people have everything go the way you want all the time? Anybody have that? And yet we always expect life to go that way and get disappointed, angry, and frustrated when it doesn't. And saying things like, that should not have happened. That is wrong. That is bad. And why do we do that? Because nobody wants to hurt. Nobody wants to struggle. Nobody wants to feel pain. No one wants to experience loss. And nobody wants to die early. And we don't want that for others either. That's why our heart aches for those people that are in Texas. And as much as we dislike it, Jesus gave us a clear information about life when he said, in this life there will be trials and tribulations. It's like him saying, in this life, you're going to experience loss. In this life, you'll experience disappointment. In this life, there will be some heartache. And even though Jesus informed us and warned us clearly, we still fight against it and believe it shouldn't happen and spend a lot of energy when things don't go the way we want. You know, the fact is, you can fight against reality, but you will lose. But only 100% of the time. So, but here's the next line after Jesus said, in this life there will be trials and tribulations. He said, be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. And what he's saying is, be of good cheer. There's going to be some challenges in your life, but through that Spirit of God, through that Christ presence in you, through that divine nature and essence in you, through that light of hope and peace and possibilities, that you can overcome that you can rise above, that you can discover solutions, that you can find greater gifts and blessings through that experience. One of my favorite lines in Scripture is from book of John, chapter 1, verse 5, when it says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never overcome the light. Whatever darkness you're experiencing, there is a light that shines in you that no darkness can ever, ever put out. So there is hope for us. The question is, so how are you showing up in the areas of your life that aren't working as well as you'd like? Because it's an important question to ask ourselves. You know, a member of our congregation about 4 or 5 months ago gave me a book called On Fire by John O'Leary. Anybody read or heard the book On Fire by John O'Leary? And it is his story of at the age of 9 being burned to 100% of his body. 87% of his burns were third-degree burns, the worst type of burn. He was burned so badly the doctors didn't think he would survive the night. Spent 5 months in the hospital being bandaged up every single day. You know, when you have no skin, it is not only painful, but you are hugely susceptible to infection. When you have no skin, it's hard to regulate your body temperature. He had lung damage from smoke inhalation. He needed to have fingers amputated. The only place they could harvest some skin to do some skin grafts was on his scalp. And so they would take off the skin, put it somewhere else, and wait for the skin to grow again and keep doing that. He had countless surgeries and was wrapped like a mummy every day, and then had 8 more months of rehab after he left the hospital after 5 months. Here is what John O'Leary says. You can't always choose the path you walk in life, but you can always choose the manner in which you walk it. And this entire book of his, On Fire, it's entitled 7 Choices to Ignite a Radically Inspired Life. Because he absolutely believes no matter what happens in life, every one of us has a choice of how we show up, a choice of how we approach it, a choice of how we think about it, and a choice of how we react and walk through it. And I absolutely believe that how we handle the devastating, difficult moments of life is the greatest determiner of how much joy, happiness, fulfillment, and meaning that we experience in life. John O'Leary says everybody gets burned in some way or the other. Everyone experiences pain. But also, everyone has the ability to choose how we show up and to choose how we move through it. I usually don't like reading long passages, but I want to read you his words of that experience and that day that changed his life forever. I watched some older kids in the neighborhood playing with fire. They dripped a little gasoline on the sidewalk, stood back, and then one of the big kids from grade 7 threw a match on it. The puddle sparked to life. It danced. It was amazing. I figured if they could do it and get away with it, so could I. So this morning, with Mom and Dad out of the house, I went into the garage and I lit a small piece of cardboard on fire and walked over to a 5-gallon barrel of gasoline and tilted it to pour a little gasoline on the piece of cardboard. Just like the other boys, I wanted to make those flames dance. But the big red barrel was too heavy to lift. So I set the burning piece of cardboard on a concrete floor, knelt and bear hugged the can, and carefully tilted it toward the flame. I waited for the liquid to come out, but it didn't. All I remember was a big boom. The explosion launched me against the wall on the far side of the garage. My ears rang. My body hurt. My clothes were drenched in gasoline. I was on fire. I was on fire. I felt dizzy. Everything around me was ablaze. The only way I could get out of the garage was to go back through the flames. Yes, I remember being taught stop, drop, and roll, but I was so scared. I was in so much pain. I needed someone to save me. So I just ran. I ran up the 2 stairs and opened the door to the house. I ran struggling and screaming into the house, running around the stairs, not sure what to do, yelling for someone, anyone, to help me. I stood in the front hall screaming, still on fire. My 2 sisters came running down the stairs and looked at me, covered their faces, and screamed in horror. Then I saw my older brother, Jim. He raced towards me. He picked up the front door mat and started hitting me with it. And then he tackled me to the ground and wrapped me in the rug and carried me outside. The fire was out. A few minutes later, the ambulance came hurling down the street. I tried to run toward it, but my legs would barely move. All of my skin and my clothes were burnt off. I was hoping no one would see me. I was embarrassed. I was scared. I was cold. I just wanted to get inside. I climbed in the ambulance, and Jim was right behind me, ready to hop in, and they said, "Sorry, you can't come." The paramedic shut the doors, and we drove away. Now here I am in the emergency room. Everything has changed. I was desperately alone, and then I could hear a voice in the hallway. "Mom, finally." She always makes things better. I know she can fix this. I hear her footsteps. I see the curtain surrounding me pulled back. She comes right to me and takes my burnt hand in hers, gently pats my bald, raw head. "Hi, baby," she says with a smile on her face. I looked at Mom. Tears that I didn't even realize I was holding began to flow down my cheeks. "Mommy," I said in a voice shaking in fear, "am I going to die?" I know it's bad, and I so much want her warm encouragement. I want her to brush my fears away. I want to be cuddled and comforted with hope and reassurance. I want her to kiss it all away as only Mom can. I waited for the promise that she'll take care of everything. She always does. Mom clasped my hand gently in hers. She looked into my eyes, gathered her thoughts, and asked, "John, do you want to die? It's your choice, not mine." He says, "You might ask yourself the question, what kind of mom is this? So cold and callous. What kind of question is that to ask a scared little boy in the emergency?" His reply was, "I don't want to die. I want to live." And his mom said, "Then John, you need to fight like you've never fought before. You need to take the hand of God and walk this journey with him. Race forward with everything you have. Daddy and I'll be with you every step of the way. But listen to me, John, you need to fight for it." Clearly, John was shocked when his mom said this. His mom didn't give him the comfort he wanted, but his mom shared a truth that at even 9 years old, a powerful truth about life. While he wanted someone to save him, while he wanted someone to rescue and help him, his mom's question, "Do you want to die?" And the answer that, it is your choice, awakened him in a way that transformed him. He realized what his mom was saying is, "John, that you're responsible, that this is your life, this is your choice, this is your journey, that you have the resources and only you can make this decision. Only you can move through this. Only you can rise and make the decision of do you want to live." John says that moments like that, and he had 2 of them on the same day, what he call inflection points. Moments in our lives that change the trajectory of how we live and what we experience. And he said it was the second one of realizing that he could choose, even in that moment, to live a life of hope, love, and possibility rather than a life of fear, regret, and negativity. And he said to live an inspired life, that is the most important thing that every one of us needs to learn, that I am fully responsible for my life, that I am the one who makes the choice of the attitude, of the words, of how I show up, how I act, and how I interact with everything in life. You know, being responsible kind of scares us. It kind of gets a bad rap. Being responsible feels like some onerous, heavy burden that's our fault. But you know what it is? It is one of the most liberating things in the world to realize that I am responsible for my life. Because to be responsible means I have the power to choose my attitude. I have the power to choose to let go of blame and bitterness and hatred. I can choose to learn. I can choose to grow. I can choose to change. I can choose all that I want to create this experience to be something greater and better. Every one of us has a 9-year-old in us that wants to be saved. Think of a situation in your life that isn't going well and ask yourself, am I blaming someone for this, or am I hoping that someone would save me from it? Because for us to truly move our lives to a more inspired and a more positive way, we need to realize that I am fully responsible. Because that means that you are empowered. You have your spiritual power, your mental, your creative power, that all the ability is to transform whatever you're going through into the most positive and possible outcome. Responsibility isn't a burden, it's a blessing. It's a gift. And it is the gift of freedom to choose. I am responsible for my life. Let's say that together. I am responsible for my life. Take a deep breath and notice what you're feeling when you say those words. And here's how I think we ought to feel when we say, I am responsible for my life. I think we should feel liberated. We should feel excited and empowered. Because whatever's going wrong in your life, when you accept responsibility, that means you're the one that's in charge of making it better. That you don't need someone to save you, and you don't need to blame anyone. That whatever is going on, I am responsible for my life. Together, I am responsible for my life. I am responsible for my feelings. I am responsible for my feelings. I am responsible for my thoughts. I am responsible for my thoughts. I'm responsible for my attitude. I am responsible for my attitude. I'm responsible for my problems. I am responsible for my problems. I'm responsible for my relationships. I am responsible. I am responsible for my health. I am responsible for my success and happiness. Deep breath and feel liberated, excited, and empowered, because that's what it means to be responsible, is that you've got that power. You can choose. This mom, I got to tell you, I'm impressed with her. She scares me, and I like her at the same time. Because it just didn't stop with that little interaction in the emergency room. So 5 months later, he gets home. He's in a wheelchair. His hands are bandaged. They've amputated most of his fingers. And he's got 3 brothers and sisters. So the 4 of them and the mom and dad are sitting down to dinner. And mom cooks his favorite meal, which is potatoes au gratin. I'm not sure what that is, but he likes this. So he's sitting down, and then he's with because the hands are in gauze wrapped up, he can't pick up the fork. So his sister Amy picks up his fork, takes some potatoes, and feeds him. And the mother says, Amy, put that fork down now. If John wants to eat, he'll pick up his fork himself. The kid starts to cry. I'm reading it, and I'm crying. And the kid literally, I've been through so much already. And you wouldn't even feed me, you wouldn't even pick up my fork for me. And what he realized again later was his mom was saying that there are things in our lives that we need to do. There's some areas where we don't want to pick up our fork. Sometimes we don't want to have a tough conversation that we know it's ours to do. Sometimes we don't go to the doctor when we know it's the right thing to do. Sometimes we won't reach out for help. We need to pick up our own fork. That being responsible for your life is one thing, but are you doing the action and the next step that's needed for you to move your life towards, again, the great life that we all want? So what is the fork that you need to pick up? What is the action that you need to take? What is the conversation that you need to have? And this, he says, is the first choice that we need to make to move our lives to live a more inspired life. And the second one, he likes asking questions when he shares this. So the second one is called, what are you hiding? One of the things he realized is that he had to depend on bandages to save his life. The bandages protected his skin from infections. The bandages really helped reduce some of the pain and the sensitivity of his skin. And he had that on for 5 months. But when they took the bandages off and he looked at his skin, he hated how he looked. The redness, the bumpiness, how it was so scarred and ugly, how skinny his body was. He was so atrophied. He hated his body. And while they took the bandages off, he said he found ways to have inner bandages to cover up himself because he felt so ashamed. He so disliked his body. And he said for 2 decades he would wear long sleeve everything because he didn't want anyone to see his skin. And he said what happens with many of us is that we have hurts and wounds that we just try to hide, try to act like we're normal, try to pretend aren't there, try to deny. And he said the unfortunate thing about that is what happens is then we start acting in ways that people will like us. We try to hide the pain and then act like how people will like us. And he said the problem with that is when you hide those things, you end up holding back and blocking the beauty and your joy and being your true self. That we tend to live inauthentic lives because we're so scared of all the pain and the shame and hurt that we're trying to bury and trying to get everybody to like us, that we feel a disconnection with who we really are and what we're about. He said our own beauty and our light gets dimmed every time we try to hide who we really are or hide what's going on. And he said every single one of us needs to ask ourselves that question. What am I hiding? What is it that I'm denying about myself? What is it that it is time for me to admit or to face? What is it that it's time for me to accept and heal? What is it time for me to get help with? What is it time for me to share? What is it time for me to tell someone? Because he said the only way to liberate ourselves for this better life that we want is to free ourselves from the ways that we are hiding and withholding the truth of who we are. And that whenever we try to hide our pain and shame excessively, is that what happens is we also end up withholding our joy, our creativity, our passion, our ideas, our talents, and our beauty. You know, I told you about 1.5 years ago, my sister fell down some stairs in the subway. She broke all her teeth and her arms. She was injured, and she realized at some level that it was a sign from the universe asking her to look at how she was living her life. And was she really being true to herself? And were there things that she weren't facing and looking at that she needed to look at? And she has been on this incredible journey of doing healing and going to therapy, doing a lot of meditation, and it's really transformed her. One of the things my sister was chasing for a long time was this PhD. You know, I've got 2 or 3 other siblings that have PhDs, and she wasn't enjoying no PhD, but she kept doing this PhD. And then finally through this journey, she realized there were so many other things she loved to do that she was holding back. I remember the day she called me and told me, she says, I'm not doing my PhD. The joy that radiated from the phone was crazy. And my sister's just been wanting to live and be happy. She's rediscovered, she's such a good painter. She's so talented. I was just in Montreal and at her place, and I think, man, I want to commission this girl to do some paintings for me. She's brilliantly talented. She also knows that she has the ability to organize and do fun things and get people coordinated. Right now, she's doing a trip across Canada on train with my sisters and just loving it. She planned it all, and she's just good at that. We're talking about what we're doing to the French Alps next year. I mean, she's just really good at it, but she's so joyful. But what she realized is that she was hiding so much of her pain, but hiding so much of her beauty and her talent as well. Because you can't hide one without the other one being held back. You just can't. So our questions for ourselves is, what are you hiding? But what beauty are you holding back? What greatness? What talent? What joy? You know, what advice and encouragement are you holding back? What talents and abilities are in you that you haven't allowed to come forth? You know, I have a friend whose name is Brian Ritchie. He's my comedy coach, but he's also a good friend. I think he did a volunteer thing here. He's done some jokes here. And one of the things, Brian's been doing this for 16 years and hasn't really sort of broken through and been successful, even though he's talented. And one of the things that Brian does is he coaches and helps everybody. He'll help anyone make their jokes better, and he's just so talented with it. And so last Thursday, I went to see Emo Phillips at Stand Up Live. And the MC guy had been in comedy for 14 years, and he kept saying, Brian was such a help. It's because of Brian that my jokes are better. And one thing I know about him, he always gives and helps with advice. So a couple months ago, everybody heard of Kevin Hart? You know? So Kevin Hart was auditioning people for Heart of the City. And there were like 16 or 18 people, and I went to see Brian, and he didn't think he had a good set. I thought he had a good set. Anyway, he got chosen to be on Kevin Hart on Comedy Central. They recorded it. It's going to be in October. And I just believe the reason for Brian's success just isn't his comedy. I believe that his ongoing giving nature of always wanting to help. Even people say, why do you keep helping other people succeed? You should be working on you. But that's his gift. This guy knows how to write a joke and set it up and freely helps everyone. And that's why I think this big break, an opportunity on Comedy Central is coming. So my question is, what are you holding back? What gifts and talents and beauty are you holding back that you should be sharing with the world? Because what happens is, it not only cheats us out of great joy, it cheats the world out of talent that you should be sharing, you know, creativity and joy. It's in us. The question is, we need to stop holding back and stop hiding those things. In a talk that John was giving to a corporation and sharing his story, somebody said to him, hey, if you had to do it again, would you do it all over again? And he said, oh, so would I choose to almost die again? Would I choose to get burned over 100% of my body? Would I choose to be in the hospital for 5 months? Would I choose multiple surgeries, lung damage, scars, fingers being amputated, and people looking and pointing at me every day of my life? He said, yes. And he said, while this was devastating to me, and it was a painful journey that I'd wondered if I'd even get through, it also helped shape me into who I am today. It has helped bring greater levels of joy and happiness. It has created a character in me that I like. It has helped me meet some of the greatest people, develop some of the greatest relationships, have a fabulous career, and mainly a great wife and 4 incredible kids. Sometimes when we see painful experiences, we want to run. But I'll tell you, that's a thing we shouldn't run from, we should run to. Because in the gift of those difficulties are blessings that will lift our lives to higher levels. You know, I've watched a lot of movies, and there are a lot of movies where they try to erase the bad things. Like, did you see Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind? It was Jim Carrey. They had a painful relationship, took a machine to try and erase the relationship. And Click with Adam Sandler had a remote control. He wanted a remote control, fast forward over all the bad things. It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. You know, he kind of wished he'd never been born, and then he got to see what it would be like. And you know, every single show that tries to erase or delete or fast forward all the painful parts of life, everyone comes to the conclusion that that makes things worse. That life is better because of those challenges. And yeah, they scare us, they overwhelm us, and we all need to have a good cry and get the emotional support we need, but do not run from it. Because it is a gift and a part of the miracle of life, just like all the beautiful things are. And I think even more important, because those are the things we sometimes run from when we really should be running towards them. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, say yes, because that's all I got. Okay, good, because my whole talk is based on you saying yes. What I think is so funny and delightful is the kid was on fire and got burned. And he named his book On Fire. But he meant the other on fire. You ever say, that guy's on fire? You know what that means? He's doing great. He's unstoppable. He can do anything. So I love that little juxtaposition, because it means when you feel like you're getting burned and you're on fire in the not good way, realize that you can live a radically inspired life and be on fire for your life by accepting full responsibility. Don't blame anybody. Don't look for anyone to save your life. It is up to you. Somebody once said, if it is to be, it is up to me. And so this week, anything that's going up in your life, say, I'm responsible for this. I get to choose how I show up in this. And the second one, don't hide. Don't hide your pain, and don't withhold your beauty and your joy, because you have so much to give this world and so much life to live and so much good to experience. Do these 2 things, and we will begin our journey on the path of living a radically inspired life. God bless you all.